Welcome to the Reviews Without Remorse podcast with Joe, Kyle, and Ray. Be warned, the discussions in this podcast will contain detailed spoilers. Enter at your own risk and enjoy the show. Oh, come right in. Don't let the fact that my door's closed dissuade you in any way from entering my office.
Well, sir, you have 25 unpaid parking tickets. We have a warrant for your arrest. Can you cuff Mr. Bernstein, please?
Cuff me? There are people out there with chainsaws. You're cuffing me.
Well, sir, you have 25 unpaid parking tickets, and it's your car, so we have to take you in.
Well, wait a second. I've got an idea. Is there something that I have in this podcast that I can hand to you and would make you kind of forget that you could be listening to other movie review podcasts? I'd like you to be listening to something in this ear, and in the other ear, you'd kind of forget about. This ear you'd be concentrating on, and the other one you'd say, what did I have there? I don't even remember. And this is episode number 196, and in this episode, we take a look at the new trailer for the new John Wick spin-off starring Ana de Armas, Ballerina, and then Axel Foley returns to Beverly Hills in 1987's Beverly Hills Cop 2. Ouch, let go of my arm! Please, I'm robbing you. That's what I'm doing.
I trained you with the goal to make you a lethal weapon, hidden in the shadows, but at the same time become a protector. But that, it's up to you to choose.
What brings you here?
I'm looking for the tribe with this mark.
Are you sure you're ready to face this?
Yes.
There's a declaration of war if she's not called off.
What will you do about it?
Perhaps I can send someone to solve the problem.
We don't get mad, we get even.
She sent you here to kill me?
Or you can leave.
I'm not leaving.
Your choice.
So, John Wick Ballerina. Gentlemen, what's your take on this new trailer?
God damn.
It's, everybody was excited when No Time to Die came out about Ana de Armas' character.
Yeah.
And this is basically giving her the spin-off movie that everybody was asking for. Different franchise, but it's that movie. And even in the trailer, some of her choreography, I'm like, that's like watching Paloma all over again. This is the Paloma movie. Yeah. Paloma Origins.
100%.
Yeah. It's almost like somebody had the chutzpah. Like everyone talks about, wouldn't it be cool if we saw a Paloma movie? And everybody's like, yeah, but we know it's not going to happen. But somebody went out there and said, you know what? I think I'm going to do it.
That's actually not a bad idea. It'll make a lot of money.
Yeah.
And who to take? The whole John Wick crew. But oh my God, watching that trailer though, god damn, the action sequences are awesome, but we're putting John Wick against her.
I kind of feel like this is one of these things that I should be kind of, cringing a tiny bit at, because it's like how many franchises now? Hey, we have a great franchise with a great male lead character. So what do we do now? Well, obviously we do it again, but with a girl in the lead, So, but, it's her, so I'm not going to complain. But yeah, to your point, it is kind of weird. Like now it's her versus John Wick. So we got to see how that plays out.
I wouldn't be surprised if they wind up working together by the time the movie is over.
Like
there's some larger threat or something like that.
Right. We have to team up and get the guys who set us up.
And there always is. It's a dodgy idea, and it can often backfire when they try and create a movie around a new character in that same universe that's already been established.
Yeah.
But I do have a lot of faith in the John Wick world and the creatives behind John Wick, because they haven't had a misfire yet.
I totally agree with that. And I think the look of the film, the vibe of the film is very consistent with what we've gotten so far from John Wick. The only thing that makes me a tiny bit nervous is the director. He apparently is the guy who's been doing the Underworld movies.
Okay.
Which are not bad. I've seen a couple of them and they're pretty good. But I don't know if
he's had some time to refine craft. When was the last time an Underworld movie came out?
Well, that's true. Yeah, fair enough. So, yeah, I mean, it looks pretty good, pretty consistent. So I'm definitely willing to give this a shot. I haven't missed the John Wick movie yet. I haven't seen one that I didn't love, so I'm on board.
And a female-led John Wick style movie can work because I don't know if you probably have seen the movie Atomic Blonde, which basically was a John Wick style movie with a female lead, and it worked. I mean, it really did. So as far as having a female lead character, that's not the part that worries me. It's the stretching of the premise. How far can we go with this character before it starts to get silly? But I really don't feel that way about the John Wick world so far. They're 4 for 4.
Agreed.
And there's been plenty of females in the John Wick universe that have been badass.
Yep.
You had what's her name, the UFC fighter in the hotel room scene, just wrestling around with John Wick. I mean, I could think of worse ways to go than Ana de Armas putting you in a judo leg chokehold or something.
All of you eat the floor! Now! Go!
Axel Foley is back. Who is he?
I'd say he's a cop.
This is a Detroit badge. What the hell are you doing in Beverly Hills? I'm going deep undercover.
Back where he doesn't belong.
Street smart Detroit detective Axel Foley returns to posh Beverly Hills, this time on a mission to help detectives John Taggart and Billy Rosewood solve the Alphabet Crimes case and find out who shot and nearly killed Captain Andrew Bogomil. Written by Danilo Bach, Daniel Petrie Jr., and Eddie Murphy. Directed by Tony Scott. 1987's Beverly Hills Cop 2. Can I start off with a bit of a confession, which might not go over too well?
Please.
Lead.
So, just a weird fun fact. I actually kind of prefer Beverly Hills Cop 2 over Beverly Hills Cop 1.
Thank you.
Wow.
Okay. Now, I am not in any way, shape, or form saying that this is a superior film. I don't think it is.
I agree.
But I do happen to just gravitate towards this one a little more. And I think it's for a couple reasons. First off, this film came out in 1987. This was the year, I'm going to show my age again. This is the year I graduated high school. So this was sort of like in between the time of 1984 and 1987. Now I've got my driver's license, so my buddies and I are driving my car to go see this. Plus, it just sort of falls into like the mid to late 80s was when like the kind of like 80s action movie really sort of got defined, and really started to sort of take shape and come into its own. And I kind of feel like that's sort of where this movie fits in my kind of timeline. There's a lot of other things about it that I like that we'll talk about, but yeah, I kind of it's a very watchable film for me. I kind of feel like it's like, again, there's movies that are great movies that you can't wait to find somebody who hasn't seen it yet and you want to sit them down and watch it. There's other movies that you could just pop on in the middle and you just kind of want to watch it because again, you just sort of love the whole thing. Kyle, tell me why I'm crazy.
Well, I have nothing against Beverly Hills Cop 2. Beverly Hills Cop 2 is a fun 80s action movie, and everything has gotten bigger. The plot has gotten bigger. The firefights have gotten bigger. The guns have gotten bigger. I mean, it's just they ramped it up. Instead of bullshitting his way into a hotel suite, now he's bullshitting his way into a mansion. So everything just looks a step up. Right off the bat, you can tell we're watching a very different director. This movie looks more like True Romance than it looks like Midnight Run. And that's okay. Tony Scott is a very competent action director. But is it the classic that Beverly Hills Cop is? No. I don't think it's setting out to be. It's an action movie sequel. And it's a darn good one. Yep. But it's not a perfect 10.
Raymond, I saw a little nod of agreement. You share my love for this film?
I do. Kyle, let me tell you how you are wrong. So,
hey, I like this movie.
I will put this movie up there with the Terminator series, with the Alien series, and even the Godfather series. The sequels are better. You've established your environment, you've established the universe of the first film, which is amazing on its own, but you're kicking it off and just kicking it up that extra notch, and the second one is better.
Well, I will. Every series that you just listed, I prefer the first films in every single one.
Well, like I said, you're just wrong in general.
That's fine.
But yeah, but I will sort of go with that. I kind of feel like this one falls in line with, like, say, a Lethal Weapon 2, where I feel like it's, again, you can never put that magic of a first film back in the bottle. But what you can do is sort of take it to its next logical step. And I kind of feel like this one does that pretty damn well, where it does. I like that they focused on the relationships with like Eddie Murphy, Axel Foley didn't just leave Beverly Hills Cop never to see these guys again. We kind of established, yeah, they actually kept in touch. They hang out, they go fishing, like that's pretty cool. So, then like when Axel shows up, he's very friendly with Bogomil's daughter, that kind of stuff. So yeah, I kind of feel like it does the sequel right. It's not redoing the original. It's a new story with the same guys. It saves us the trouble of introducing the characters again, so we can sort of jump right into things. And this one does it. And I feel like what it also does is a lot of films always try to capture, those beats, the familiar beats, and we have to sort of redo. Like one thing that I find slightly annoying in a lot of the Lethal Weapon movies is there has to be one stunt of somebody falling out of, a tall building or something, and it's like, guys, you don't have, what I mean, like stop with that. But this one does it the right way. Like, for example, I think the soundtrack in here, I kind of found myself listening to this one even more than the original. And they were smart because they sort of had, like, there was like a song that opened the film. There was a song for the crazy car chase. There's a song for the like the strip club scene, like that kind of stuff. Like they sort of they hit the same beats, but in a much better way, that I kind of feel like it didn't slap you in the face and say, hey, here's that scene again, kind of, maybe a tiny bit, but not enough that I would notice, put it that way.
I'll tell you, what's a real earworm is the heist music. Every time that the villains pull a heist, that little musical cue is wonderful, and it's been in my head since rewatching this movie.
Yeah.
Well, Joe, like you were talking about, with like how Axel like starts off and he's, the cigarette thief, the hijacker, and he's got like his little t-shirt on and all that. But now we see him, and he's now advanced in his career. X amount of time later, now he's wearing a suit, and now he's going after credit card thieves. So it's also, it's showing the start of his career, and now he's upgraded a little bit. He's advancing in his career, and you can actually visually see that doing the same exact thing, but it's upgraded. So now he's going after the gold MasterCard blank card thieves or whatever, and that's when he gets the message about the story, and now he has to bail out of that situation, and he disappears in a unique way. And it's also a throwback at the same time. We're like, hey, you're that guy with the cigarettes. He's like, no, that ain't me.
Yeah. I'm with you 100% there. I will say that I remember as this film opens up and he's dressed to the nines, I remember thinking, like, I think this is Eddie Murphy kind of wanting to wear a suit, so we're going to sort of work it into the movie. But I don't mind. But again, I totally see it the way you said it. Again, you don't want to just do the same scene over again. So you want to sort of change things up a bit. So I think it works pretty well. And I mean, I like the fact that the jewelry store heist is kind of like the action scene that sort of opens the film, as opposed to like another chase with Eddie Murphy, etc. And I did think it was kind of funny too. Like Eddie Murphy shows up with the suit on. I get it. But then that thug from the first one shows up and he's dressed to the nines too. And it's kind of like, yeah, all right, so whatever. I don't know if I totally buy that, but fine. I don't mind it at all.
Well, it's kind of like my point that I made earlier. Everything is bigger in this one.
Yeah.
It's the same but bigger. This movie has more firepower, both literally and figuratively.
Yeah.
Thank you, Billy.
But it might have less heart.
I don't know about that. You also said, did you say that you preferred Terminator 1 over Terminator 2 and also Alien and Alien over Aliens?
Yes. I prefer Alien and I prefer Terminator over Terminator 2. And I have nothing against.
I just want to clarify.
These are, you're listing some of the best sequels ever made, and I would never, ever criticize any of them. If it makes you feel any better, Empire Strikes Back is better than A New Hope.
Excuse me, we're the owners of this house. They're in Hawaii for a week while the construction's happening. I'm Axel Foley, Beverly Hills Building Inspector.
You've stolen this house.
How do you steal a house? It's my uncle's house.
All right, so just so you guys think I'm not going to just kind of, love this movie without any criticism, trust me, I got some. I will say this. This film, honestly, I think it was the film that made me sort of say to myself, you know what, screenwriting is not that hard, because there's sort of a formula that they stick to in this, and it's sort of become like my go-to when I see a screenplay that I'm like, no, I see what they're doing there. I don't like that. I feel that Purvis and Wade, and I've said this before, Purvis and Wade, who've written a lot of the most recent Bond films, I felt like these guys were total products of 90s action movies. And this is the film that I kind of blame for it, because I feel like this is a very simple story. Well, let me say it differently. It's a very simple screenplay, because I feel like this, it shows you, it's very paint by numbers. And it's like, okay, do an action scene. At the end of the action scene, leave a clue. That will take us to the next thing. And then we'll have a little detective scene here, or another action scene, or a funny scene. At the end of that, leave a clue, and that leads you to the next thing. So kind of like when you hear me talking about like Quantum of Solace, and I can't stand how that story plays out, where it's like, a clue will literally fall into his lap, or somebody else will literally hand him a clue or something. This is, I feel like, where that kind of comes from. This screenplay does that, where it's like, we get to this point, it leads us to that. We get to that point, it leads us to the next. We get to that point, it leads us to that. And it's very paint by numbers. It does not take much at all to sort of move the story forward. That would be my one gripe.
Well, we as the audience already kind of know before Axel does. It's not as much of a mystery for us. It's more about showing us the action and Eddie Murphy, and now Eddie Murphy is even less restrained than he was in the last one. Like, now he's really doing the full Eddie, and it's still Eddie in his prime. It's before he started to get a little too family friendly. Like, this is still the Eddie Murphy of Raw and Delirious and 48 Hours and like the funny Eddie Murphy.
And he's Coming to America.
Yes.
I feel like this is real. Yeah, I feel like we were talking in the last one, and I was sort of trying to pitch. It was funny as I was re-listening to us talk about Beverly Hills Cop. I was kind of second guessing what I was saying, because I was really pitching the idea that this was sort of like Eddie Murphy as the up and comer, and which not quite right. I mean, he's definitely established at this point. It's not like but it still is the early days of like I think I compared him to Belushi, because they said this is like his Blues Brothers, it's that kind of thing. It was early. It was very natural and organic, whatever. This one, he is very much established as like he's on top of his game at this point.
Mm-hmm. Eddie Murphy appears in the credits. It's like Eddie Murphy Productions. Like he's that much involved at that point.
But even in his performance, I mean, the training wheels are off now. Now it is just Eddie on the loose, and it's to the film's benefit.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, my criticisms of the story again are not even that big, but I just kind of feel like, again, you're not looking at that. You're looking at a connection of really good, really funny scenes. Good action scenes. Everything is shot well. By the way, too, I'll also say this. I've had people tell me, dude, like put it this way, when I gush about Skyfall and No Time to Die, and I go on and on about the cinematography, I've had people kind of tap me on the wrist and be like, stop talking about the cinematography when all you're talking about is the color correction. You're like they put a purple and orange filter on something, or use one of those LUTs to light everything a certain way, and you just go gaga over it. And I'm like, yeah, okay, guilty as charged. I'm not disagreeing with that. It's fair, but I feel like this movie, Tony Scott with those orange filters to make like the hazy sunsets. It's like back then I was doing the same thing. I was like, oh my God, that's so cool. Tony Scott was notorious for this. Between like Top Gun, he did remember Revenge with Kevin Costner, which was the reason why I bought a Jeep when I was young. That was his thing. Like, he would do these really cool hyper stylized sunsets and stuff, and you could tell there's filters on the camera that are kind of getting that effect. So again, I'm a sucker for that stuff. So
I wrote down the exact same thing. I'm like, there's our Tony Scott signature shot of either the sun rising or setting off to the horizon. He does it in every single one of his films with that orange filter on it. It's in True Romance. It's in Domino. It's in Top Gun. It's always there. Like, there's the Tony Scott money shot right there.
Yeah.
Hey man, does it work or does it not work?
Oh, it always looks good.
It works on me.
I'm always aware when I'm watching a Tony Scott film, and I think that is also one of the reasons that there's a lot less restraint in this one. Like, now things are getting bigger. Eddie Murphy's getting bigger in his performance. The action set pieces are getting bigger. It's just more firepower, more power.
Reunited with all his old buddies.
What the hell's going on here? Who the hell are you? I'm Johnny Wishbone, psychic extraordinaire. If you need me, just think Johnny Wishbone, and I come running. Lots and biddles. It's like kibbles and bits, but different.
Oh, this is a big mistake, a big mistake.
Would you lighten up and take some risks?
This is definitely breaking the law.
Speaking of more power, one of my favorite scenes was the Metalux scene in the firing range. What were some of your guys' favorite scenes? I mean, obviously for me it was the firing range. He goes in there, he's doing his con again, coming in there with the little paper bag full of sound-seeking projectiles.
Yeah, what the heck is that?
Yeah. But it was great because, again, I even when I first saw this when I was young, I'm like, I don't even think that's a thing, but I think he's just convincing her that that's a thing, so it works. I will say this, Ray, and I figured you'll probably love this one, is I love these sound effects of the gunshots. Again, this is kind of like mid-late 80s action where just every pistol shot sounds like the loudest shotgun blast you've ever heard. You know, like when they're shooting up it starts when they start shooting up the jewelry store at the beginning. It's like this big giant,
absolutely
shotgun blast.
I mean, my favorite scene is, or any scene really, with just Taggart and Rosewood by themselves riffing off of one another. That was something that I really praised in the first film, and that's still my favorite thing here. They're like the Rosencrantz and Guildenstern of this world. They're just like hilarious, paired off against one another. They're very natural, and it's always funny.
Yeah,
they are. But now we're also talking about character development, and I don't think any other character except Billy Rosewood has the most character development in a sequel than he does. All of a sudden, this is my relaxed atmosphere, and he's got his ferns all over the place. But Jesus Christ, Billy! Even I'm jealous of the collection you got. God damn.
Well, that's I tell you, it's funny you say that because, like, put it this way, I have a serious commentary on that, and I have like a little funny commentary on that because I feel like I really did like in the beginning when they show Billy and Taggart kind of trying to talk about this case, and Bogomil saying, guys, you're not supposed to be beyond this, whatever, and then they get bawled out by the chief, who's this rotten politician, whatever. But I love how first off, Billy kind of says something to Taggart like, hey, these things work out, trust me, and he winks, and he's obviously doing an Axel Foley right there, like he kind of picked that up from Axel. And then when Bogomil is getting chewed out, like he's saying, like, I want my men to go on their hunches. That's what cops do. That kind of felt like that was like a little bit of the Axel too. Like we talked about in the first one, how I think Kyle, you were saying this. It was like he seemed a little too straight laced in the beginning, but then as time wore on, you see him. He's a real cop kind of thing. I kind of feel like they really sort of hit that home here too. It was almost like they don't make the mistake that, like, say Quantum makes, where it's like we're gonna try to do the arcs again as if they didn't happen the first time. We're kind of starting off and showing you, like, yes, this is sort of where these guys are after the experience they had in the last one, and I think that's really good. The funny commentary I have is more about I do love Billy Rosewood's apartment with the pictures of like Rambo and Cobra in the background.
Cobra, yes.
Which I thought, which again, it was funny because, like, here I am, like, I'm 17 years old seeing this in the theater, so I'm already kind of orgasmic because I had the same posters hanging up in my room, literally, So it was almost like they were kind of winking to the camera a little bit. It was a tiny bit meta. Like, it's like, we know you guys love these 80s action movies. We do too. That's why this is an 80s action movie. So here you go, kind of thing. So it was kind of fun. Like they were sort of running with it with a joke, sort of.
Well, to your point about we pick up with these characters where they left off in the last one, that is kind of the natural progression for Billy to go, because he was in his very first shootout and his first like real action as a cop, and you can see on his face how much he loves it. One of his last lines, when he arrests everybody, he just goes, "Great," and you can tell he's loving it. So it's only a matter of time before he really ramps it up. Like now he's got the 44 Magnum, and now he's got the Duster, and he's got this fascination with Rambo because of how much fun he had in the shootout in the last one.
Right.
And even at the very end, like the climax, Taggart's like, "Here, Billy." He's like, "What?" He's like, "You don't have one of these." And he's like, "Oh shit, you're right." And he starts stuffing his pockets.
That was great. I mean, when he put the big long coat on from Cobra, I was like, "Oh my god, there it is!" Like it was so cool. Oh my god. So that's what I mean. I mean, again, like I said, I am not in any way, shape, or form saying that this is better than or a superior film than the original, but I do seem to have a lot more fun in this one. Like it's a little more of a shut your brain off and just enjoy the ride kind of thing. And by the way, the music is great, and I feel like, again, Harold Faltermeyer is back in this one, and I feel like he's amping it up too. It's almost like he's kind of having a little more fun with the Axel F theme in this one. There's a very liberal, use of that in this, and I love it. So yeah, I mean, it's everything. Like I said, they really do. To Ray's point earlier, and again, I don't know if I'd even put this in the same league as, say, like an Aliens or a Terminator 2. Quite, I wouldn't say it's like those to me reach a level of. There's a level of mastery to those films. And again, that's James Cameron's. I mean, that's of course. But this one, I like, again, even though I wouldn't put it on that plateau, I do think that it does sort of do the similar thing where it's taking these characters, and we understand the characters, we understand why people gravitate towards these films, and we understand what made the original work. So we can take it now and take it up to a new level, and play harder, just play harder with the material that we have now. So, and I think it just sort of works.
And it's smart enough not to be just a beat for beat rehashing of what made the other one special. If you look at movies like the Hangover movies, they're basically the same beat for beat. There's nothing. No, by the time the second and third one came out, you kind of know how the story is going to play out. You might not know the details, but it's going to be Doug disappears. How do we find him? We don't remember, and just piece together the clues. They don't really do that here. It's a very different movie. It's a different plot for the villains. The circumstances of Axel going to Beverly Hills are very different. So I do appreciate that it's not paint by numbers, Beverly Hills Cop movie must follow the exact same story progression as Beverly Hills Cop 1.
Yeah.
Until...
Oh, God.
Well, we're going to save that for the next podcast.
Yeah, well, let's save
that'll
that
be fun. Yeah. No, you're right. And I feel that this is a good example of where, some films are very tough to do. Like, I think I've always given Die Hard 2 a lot of credit for being probably as solid a sequel as they could have done with that, because that one is sort of like everything about that movie is very specific circumstances. So trying to replicate those beats is always going to be tricky. I feel like Axel Foley, though, this is something that there's room to play in this world. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So to your point, I think that this one, they did have some room to play. I mean, there's only a couple, if you think about it. I mean, if we stick with the same characters, and again, they're not doing the whole fish out of water thing that they did very much in the first one. So they're not trying. You're right to your point. They're not trying to replicate every beat of that first one. They take the characters, they put them back in the same place. Other than that, it is pretty much an original story. But the characters are the same people.
You do need credible reasons for Axel to go to Beverly Hills. I mean, it is Beverly Hills Cop. So they have to come up with a reason for him to be there, and it's not contrived. I mean, I totally understand. I remember I said last week, Bogomil is my favorite character. Using him as the MacGuffin and like the inciting incident, the thing that spurs Axel to go out to Beverly Hills works for me. It's different than what happened in the last one, and I think that's to the film's benefit. It's getting Axel where he needs to be, but for a different reason, and that's one of the reasons why this works as a sequel.
So how long would it take to shave those legs anyway?
I suppose you're trying to be charming.
Well, actually, I'm just offering my grooming services.
Get out of here, you degenerate! I want you out of here!
Is this a black thing?
Hey! Sound your alarm, you gotta break it! I need authorization. Authorize!
So here's a question that kind of, every time I see this movie, it pops back into my mind. How old is Jan? Because when you first meet her, she looks like she's 12. I could have sworn she was like a 12-year-old girl when you first meet her, and then suddenly later on she's in the house by herself, and then later they show her on the phone, she's at work, and now she's like this sort of hotshot,
Right. She's 23. So this movie, it takes place over a really long period of
time. Seriously.
I think that's costuming and just the circumstances of the scenes that she shot. She's playing it She's playing it a lot younger after her father is shot than she is later in the film.
Yeah, I mean, she's sitting down, so it's hard to even know how tall she is at that point. So yeah, all I remember is like when I first saw her, I thought she was like this youngish girl, like senior in high school or something. And then later on, she's at work. I'm like, oh, wait a second, is it the same person? Like it took me once or twice to see this before I realized.
And it could go either way, and it's not really important to the story. She doesn't have to be a little girl. She doesn't have to be a full-grown adult. It's not. It doesn't really matter. Right. But they should have kept that a little bit more consistent.
Yeah, I think right. But I do like the fact that it's pretty smart storytelling, because they bring her in as a character in the beginning, to say a couple things. Then there's a little more expository dialogue later, and then they let her sort of be not so much a linchpin, but she's part of what helps him crack the case at the end. So they kind of give her a little bit of a payoff too. So pretty well done.
Well, speaking of, what did you guys think about the actual detective work? Axel's like tradecraft, picking up the clay on the shoes, the whole like match trick with the super glue and things like that, and then Rosewood attempting to, again, like Kyle, I think you said earlier, trying to be like Axel and like, and then he pops the chewing gum in his mouth and he folds up the foil, tucks it in. He's like, no, don't worry, I got this, Sarge.
That's great.
Fucks it up royally.
Yeah.
But just from like showing the point of view of Axel progressing through his career as a detective and showing off all these skills that he kind of learned before he became a cop. How'd you feel about the actual, tradecraft that he showed.
Well, he's always been able to think on his feet and improvise really well and bullshit himself into situations that he normally wouldn't have access, and that works in his capacity as a cop.
Yeah,
but
we
I do
saw
like
that a
that we
lot in the
get
first one. This is the first time I
right
think we've actually seen him doing.
now he's, to your point, he's using some tradecraft, and he's talking about his background a little bit and things that he picked up before he was a cop when he was growing up on the streets of Detroit. And that's important to the Axel Foley character. He has to be Detroit attitude in a Beverly Hills setting. That's why we're watching these movies. That's what make Beverly Hills Cop, and not some average run of the mill action franchise. So I think that does add some dimension to his character. I'm glad it's here.
Yeah. I like it as well, and I like the fact, I almost feel like I appreciate the fact that they made a point to show those scenes of him actually using some detective work and tradecraft to sort of, figure things out and move the plot forward. But I still sort of fall back on what I said earlier. I feel like there's a lot of things that kind of just sort of fall into his lap a little too easy to get us to the next thing. I mean, honest to God, I mean, when you think of, like, seriously, Axel shows up, they have the shell casings from the robbery. He takes one of the shell casings out with him, and he says, well, I mean, how many guys can make a shell casing like this? Who would? Oh, a guy named Russ Fielding. He's supposed to be the best. Let's go see Russ Fielding. Crack the case right there on the steps of the like literally figured out the entire thing right there. So, and honestly, if everyone in the gun club just sort of calmed down and stopped acting weird, he might have just walked out and be like, well, okay, well, I took a shot, and what else we got? But no, he walks in, everybody acts weird. Okay, it must be these guys. That's it. So, like, even the like the scene later when they come out of the club and the Trans Am comes and just starts taking shots at them, and they just have a shootout. And I will say that scene always kind of rubbed me a tiny bit funny, because it's like the car takes off. You just see it just sort of goes off screen. And they're running after them. All of a sudden, they turn the corner and the car's on its side, totally wrecked, hit a telephone pole, but the guys in it are gone. They took off, and
they opened fired in public. That's what cops do.
But like, why did the car flip over? I didn't understand why that had happened. But Axel reaches in, he sees a matchbook, takes it, and that cracks the case wide open. You know what I mean? Like the first thing he sees in there is it just happens to be a matchbook that just happened to have the other guy's print on it, etc. I guess, I mean, so again, I don't have a problem with it, but you watch the movie enough times, you start to realize, well, that was, pretty easy, that he just happened to grab the one thing that was going to lead him back to the sky. So again, not a complaint, even just sort of an observation, I suppose.
Well, you obviously forgot that Axel Foley is also Johnny Wishbone, and he's a psychic, so these things just happen for him.
Are we having a problem here?
Hugh Hefner, Axel Foley, and this is Max, and Max kills cops for a living.
These movies are not really supposed to be Poirot mysteries. I mean, they're not really a thinking man's detective story, because even in the first one, I mentioned how right off the bat we know exactly who the bad guys are. There's no, I mean, it's the very first scene of Steven Berkoff. We know he's the bad guy because murderer's sitting right there in his office. Yeah. They kind of do that here too. I mean, there's no secret. The audience knows what's going on, and Axel's able to figure it out right away. Yeah. It's not about that.
It's
about watching.
It's very It's very similar, because you saw Bridget Nielsen, robbing the jewelry store, and then he walks to the gun store, and who's there?
And there she is.
Right. So yeah, I totally, you're absolutely right. These films have never really been about cracking the case. It's hardly keeping us, on the edge of our seat. Who done it? We know who did it. It's just a matter of how they're going to get them.
Right.
So and enjoying the ride along the way.
Exactly. Have fun doing it. So Eddie Murphy called this movie, I did a little bit of research. He called it the most successful mediocre movie ever made. So clearly he is not as enthusiastic about it as you two guys are.
Oh, really? I would have to disagree with Eddie. I think
I don't think it's mediocre either. I mean, I think it's more than competent. It's a very well made action film, the kind of action film that you expect when you see directed by Tony Scott.
Yeah, and I honestly I go back to the idea. I think he was such a good pick for this because he did take this. I mean, Tony Scott. I'm trying to. I don't want to get carried away, but there's a part of me that wants to sort of call him. Do I call him like the Cameron of the 80s? No, because Cameron was Cameron of the 80s, I suppose. But he was. I'm trying to think. I mean, he was a good B+ director. You know, he was really up there. He's not a guy like a Spielberg or a James Cameron that you're going to remember as an auteur, but he was really solid. You know, and I feel like I can't think of a Tony Scott film that I watched and was ever disappointed with. You know, he really does know how to take you on this ride. You know, I kind of feel like the look of it is always great. You know, and again, he's even with the sunsets and everything, but even the others, the neon, everything is lit very well. Everything looks really good. The camera's always where it's supposed to be. Honestly, the soundtrack is really good between the score and the actual songs that are played in this. I mean, it really does work. And even the little things like, you know, he goes and does the scene with Sidney Bernstein, you know, and takes $200 off of him, you know,
that's great.
Right. And then by the end, and of course, the other two guys are putting their sunglasses on, going, "Oh my God, I can't believe what he's doing. Oh my God." But by the end, you know, he to the mayor, he goes, "Hey, put this, I'm going to donate $200 for your charity cause. Put it under Sidney Bernstein," that kind of thing. Like all that was sort of like vintage Foley. You know what I mean? That was sort of like that like when people try to like, what are the touches that really make an Axel Foley, like stuff like that, you know, it just sort of, he does it in a way that things sort of fall right back into place again. You know, it really works nice.
The only Tony Scott shot that's missing from this movie to make it like the Tony Scott, not cliche, but trademark, is the couple making out where it's just lit in blue. Because that's in all of the Tony Scott movies. Also.
Is that right?
I mean, yeah, that's in Top Gun, like the
Tom
Cruise kiss. It's in True Romance. I feel like it's always that love scene in blue in the dark is always there too. It's not in this movie, but I mean, Beverly Hills Cop was never about the romance.
What? I mean, seriously, I'm not kidding when I say that I literally bought a Jeep when I was in my early 20s because I saw Revenge. There's like that hot scene where she just jumps in his lap on you know, in the Jeep and everything, and I was like, I gotta get me a Jeep.
Well, speaking of as a guy who buys stuff that he sees in the movies all the time, I totally understand. Movies inspire us to do a lot of fun stuff. Buy a lot of fun things.
So I got one for you guys. So you keep mentioning Tony Scott, and I'm legitimately asking you guys now, who directed Bad Boys? If you remember the movie, did you guys pick up a lot of similarities that like Bad Boys stole from the jewelry heist scenes from this movie? Like from the outfits, the speed, the timers, like it seemed like Bad Boys stole that whole drug bust thing from the police drug hold area and just took all that from this movie. It's super similar, and I was just curious. I know you guys are into
I should have known. I should have known this. Who do you think directed Bad Boys and Bad Boys 2? It could only be one person. Michael Bay.
Well, Michael Bay.
And actually, you know, when I was fumbling around for a name before that, I wouldn't compare Tony Scott with Michael Bay, but Tony Scott in some ways was sort of like the early, you know, it was like the early inspiration of Michael Bay, I think.
Well, and they were produced by Jerry Bruckheimer, who also produced Beverly Hills Cop and Beverly Hills Cop 2. So there is some shared creative DNA between them for sure.
Agreed. That connection is very valid. I think he's a big part of that too, Jerry Bruckheimer.
And that's somebody else. If you see his name at the top of the credits, you know you're in for a good ride. A Jerry Bruckheimer film is gonna be good.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. He really is. Seriously, Tony Bruckheimer teaming up with Tony Scott. I mean, you can't ask for better. You know, I like Days of Thunder is popping up into my brain too. You know, I know he was behind that. It's again same visual style. Yeah.
Want to talk about finding Big Al's dick?
I'm curious to know where his dick is at.
Give me him. You know where your dick is, don't you, Big Al?
But do turtles have dicks?
Yeah.
I'll say this, again, we keep sort of going back to the quotable movies, but I mean, this was one. I think my friend and I weren't even out of the theater before we were just quoting every single line again from this movie.
Did anybody catch the? I know we spoke about some of the cameos in the last movie. Anybody catch the other up and coming comedian who gets a cameo in this one?
I sure did.
And he's only in it for about 2 seconds, but it's quite noteworthy.
At the beginning, the credit card guy, the hefty dude, him?
No, I mean he might have been somebody, but not
later on in the movie when they're at the Playboy Mansion.
At the Playboy Mansion,
the valet parking the cars.
The dude that's like dancing his ass off.
No, the valet who takes the cement truck.
Oh shit!
I get $10 for a car. I get $20 for a limo. What the hell is this?
Very, very young Chris Rock.
Yes, absolutely. Oh,
yeah. I tell you honestly, that's a credit I think to Eddie Murphy. I think he's the one who was he liked giving young up and comers a shot, and putting faces in these movies and good for him for doing it, honestly, because you're absolutely right. I mean, it's becoming like an Eddie Murphy trademark to see like a young comic showing up in these films.
I think that's exactly what it is. He's giving the rub of Eddie Murphy's fame to these people who are coming up behind him with similar sensibilities who would appeal to a similar audience.
$2,000 for a suit, $200 for a tie, a requisition order for a Ferrari. I don't want to see any more of these blue slips. When am I going to see some red slips?
Axel Foley is back.
I'm going deep undercover. You got the money or not? You want to do business or what? I ain't doing nothing in front of this dude because this dude is a cop. I know when I can smell a pig inside the room. I used to be a Muslim man, and I know that pork over here. Yes, pork. It's definitely pork.
Back with all his old buddies. Oh, this is a big mistake.
Would you lighten up and take some risks?
Let's get back to the plot a little bit, because I do have a couple of little criticisms. The political subplot and the sort of the inter-office machinations in the Beverly Hills Police Department and with the mayor, I don't care. It doesn't really go anywhere. It's just there to be an obstruction to our lead characters, and it's not fleshed out enough to be very interesting. It never went anywhere, and it never really had much of an impact on the main plot. So,
Kyle, obviously you work in the private sector as a government employee. As a government employee, I can tell you that shit exists.
Yeah, I never had a problem with that. I will agree with you that I feel like it was bordering excessive at times, where it was like, I mean, this guy's like just literally yelling and screaming at people, and it's like, and again, Ray, to your point, not exactly totally unbelievable either, but it does. Yeah, there were moments where it was like, are we back to this guy going bananas again? But yeah, I mean, it does give them, it does give them more of a redemption story, or a redemption moment at the end when they're telling him to go shit in his hat. So it kind of pays off. So I didn't really have a problem with it, but
yeah, to me, it just seems like filler. We need something. We need another thing to stand in their way, because we need, the good guys to have an obstacle, and that's the one that they throw at us.
Mm-hmm. Sure, but Kyle, didn't it work in Die Hard?
Yeah, I suppose.
Well,
it's a lot smaller scale in Die Hard.
Yeah, it's become put it this way, it's becoming a trope, and they're hitting all the tropes, right? You got the guys who, the real heroes who know what they're doing. Step out of my way. I'm a little unorthodox, but I know what I'm doing.
But and by God, he gets results. Damn it!
Right, exactly. And then you're gonna have the stuffy suits. You can't do things that way. That's not how we do things around here, and that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's becoming a little cliche at this point. But yeah.
Do you notice there's a lot more profanity in this movie than there was in the last one? And I feel like it's to the point where if I'm noticing it, it's a little bit too much, because I feel like if you overuse the F-bomb over and over and over again, it's not as funny and it doesn't have the same punch. And it's used in the first movie, but it's a little bit more sparing. Here I felt it was kind of like everybody was an MF or an effing jerk or whatever. And
Right.
I get it. I know what we're doing here.
It's funny. I kind of agree with you wholeheartedly. In fact, not to really sound like the old man of the group, but I tell younger people all the time, I say, listen, I drop F-bombs all the time too, but I don't make it like every other word, because once you do that, it completely loses its effectiveness. Use it as punctuation as needed. Don't just make it whatever. So yeah, I think a lot of that is, like we said before, this is Eddie Murphy raw, Eddie Murphy delirious.
True.
So he's really, the bit that he does where Bill Cosby gets on the phone and scolds him for using the F word so much. This was him. I mean, he was just constantly dropping F bombs, and everyone sort of loved it. So yeah, I get why he'd be peppering it throughout this whole film. But yeah, to your point, I agree.
The training wheels are off in this one. It's
Big
Eddie
time,
Murphy unrestrained.
So we were talking about cameos earlier. How about Hugh Hefner?
Yep.
Oh yeah.
The king. I mean,
which kind of works. I mean, I kind of feel that a lot of cameos really feel forced, but I kind of felt like that sort of works here. Especially for, I mean, again, this is a movie that likes its sexiness too. So having them show up at the Playboy Mansion for a party and having Hugh Hefner pop up, I kind of feel like it felt right in this.
Yeah, I could see Axel Foley being the kind of guy who's able to bullshit his way right into the Playboy Mansion. I mean, he's already done it in the Beverly Palm Hotel. He's bullshit his way into his own mansion. So why not the most famous mansion in all of Beverly Hills?
Absolutely. And God rest his soul, I feel like our country's gone downhill since he died.
It's all crumbling.
The world is not a good place without Hugh Hefner in it.
Me too. What else do I have in here? I feel like I also feel like, all right, so I'm defending that this is as good or an approved upon sequel, just like Terminator, just like Aliens. It takes the original, it brings back what's established and just builds upon it. But I feel like you get more of the tropes that we associate with the Beverly Hills Cop series from this movie. I feel like the actual theme is played more, kind of like the Bond theme, like the dun 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 dun. You get the dan, 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 dan. You get that more. You get the Detroit Lions jacket, which is iconic and immediately recognizable. The same way that you get the Hawaiian shirt with Magnum PI. Like it just builds upon that ethos, and this is where we're grabbing all those little accoutrements from that we recognize with the Beverly Hills Cop series.
Yeah, I would agree with that wholeheartedly. That I feel like this film really does feel like it's done by very competent people who, again, really do understand the source material. To your point, I feel like if somebody just did like a montage of the Beverly Hills Cop movies, you'd see a lot of this one. You really would. You'd see this, and in fact, I'll not to. I don't think anybody's gonna be shocked if I say this, but I would say probably all of the shots would be from 1 and 2, and very little from anything after that.
Spoilers for next.
Spoiler alert! Boy, I am ready to go for that one.
Oh yeah, I got a whole stack of notes for that one.
Wow. Anyway.
But we have to keep the people, listening to Reviews Without Remorse. So let's not talk about that now.
Right, exactly. You won't want to miss next week. That way.
So, and the other appearance I had was of Dean Stockwell as Chip.
It's true.
The only other thing I recognize him from is Quantum Leap. I just remember being a kid and just being like, that's the guy from Quantum Leap. I just thought it was such an odd thing for him to all of a sudden be playing a bad guy.
Well, if you want to see him play a really bizarre character, check out the David Lynch film Blue Velvet. He's
Oh, yeah.
quite the weirdo in that one.
Yeah. Honestly, we should probably mention the cast in general, because I feel like, well, first of all, I love the fact that you got so many of the original heavy hitters in this again. I mean, you got Taggart and Rosewood back again. Bogomil is back again, so that's great. Even though we don't get much of Bogomil, but I mean, yeah, I would say he's in here almost as much as the first one. But it's really, it's really Axel, Bogomil, and Rosewood that really, it's Axel, Billy, and Taggart who really get the shine in this one. I mean, it really amps up the buddy cop formula, really, because it really does let these three spend a lot of time together, which is terrific. It just really works. But I think the other cast members too, I'll never get this guy's name right, but Jurgen Pronchno something or other, or whatever they call.
Oh yeah,
Maxwell.
Das Boat.
Yes.
Jurgen Prochnow, I think is his name.
Is that God bless? I could not get this guy's name. I didn't want to take a shot at it, but he's pretty damn good in this. I feel like for a guy who's kind of the quintessential quiet, scary looking, nice suit kind of baddie, he works pretty well. I think he's pretty intimidating looking, so I think he's very well cast. And I think Bridget Nielsen is interesting here. Because I like her in this, because almost for the same reason I like Grace Jones in A View to a Kill, because she was sort of kind of like the iconic person of the moment, for better or for worse, because again, she's Stallone's wife at this point. She was in Rocky IV, so she's kind of becoming a thing, and she works in here. It's not, this role is not exactly demanding of her to be a wonderful actress. She's a presence, and I think she works in this. She's really good in the jewelry heist, and she's pretty much good for the rest of the film. So yeah, I think the whole cast here works pretty nicely.
I agree, and I was glad to see that Paul Reiser is given a little bit more to do than in the last one. In the last one, his scenes are great, and he's really funny, but he really only has one scene. Here, he's actually got a little subplot going on, and it's a funny one.
Yes, agreed.
I do miss Bogomil, though. I understand Ronnie Cox was making RoboCop at the same time, and that's why his character isn't as present in this one as he was in the first one.
Okay.
But I do think that as far as an inciting incident goes, Bogomil getting shot is a lot more dramatic, and it has a lot more gravitas and a lot more for Axel Foley than Mikey getting killed in the first one, because we know Bogomil, and we know that the two of them respect each other. We know that they've become friends because of the adventure that they had together 4 years earlier. So I, right off the bat, I'm like, oh yeah, he's going out there to find the guy who shot his friend. It makes a lot more sense in this one than it did in the first one.
Yes, and I'll say this too, and you just kind of reminded me of something that I always thought. Because it was Bogomil getting shot, it prompts the two guys to action a lot better. Like, Taggart is usually, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that. Like there's a great scene in the club where the two of them are talking. He says, "The hell with it," to Bogomil. They do a toast to Bogomil. And I thought that was very smart. Like, kind of like my gripes about, like, why would Q go help James Bond in License to Kill? I feel like this, this could have been the same problem, but I feel like this is the correct thing to spurn him forward, push him to want to be involved in this, whatever. He is still the same guy. He's still he's still the one who's a little more nervous, hesitant, whatever. We probably shouldn't do this, but he says, but he's got his reasons, so it works. It makes sense.
Especially when we get to the climax of the film, and Rosewood just loses his shit and just boom, like what's he say? Get your head up out of your ass and all that, and just blows up.
Yeah.
Until the mayor just turns around. He's like, "You know what? You're fired." And it's just a great moment for everybody in the film.
Yeah, I really do love that moment too. By the way, I feel like, it's funny just having the two of them telling this guy off. Finally, I almost feel like it's too easy. Like it's a very easy story thing to do, but it just works so well. It feels so good. This is like, I just love that. because it's great because I love how it even plays out where it's like Billy kind of pops first, which kind of makes sense. He's yelling a lot loud, but then Taggart takes his chance to sort of almost like he gives him like the right hook, when he says, because he doesn't have the guts to hear the truth from real cops, and then that's where the mayor perks up, and I feel like that's the line that gets the mayor fired, kind of. So it's like it just really well, I honestly I feel like for something that seems like a throwaway moment, really kind of works, and it's well done.
What are you doing in a place like this?
What?
You've stolen this house.
How do you steal a house? My uncle's house.
Axel, get out of the pool!
You're gonna get fired. This is one that's gonna make me cop of the month, and I'm gonna take you with me. We're gonna be there smiling together. You understand? No. Good.
This movie's gotten so much bigger than the last one. It even has President Gerald Ford in it.
It does. Can we talk about 80 strip clubs for a minute?
By all means. I thought you'd never ask.
You know how when I was a kid, when I was like a kid in my single digits growing up in the 70s, based on what you saw on TV and in movies, you thought quicksand was going to be a real big problem when you got older.
Yeah, what was up with that?
I feel like anybody watching Beverly Hills Cop movies just thinks that everyday people just go to strip clubs like just all the time.
You don't.
I wasn't even referring to that. If I went into a strip club and had to pay a cover charge, and I saw some chick on stage wearing a bikini dancing like that, I'd want a refund. Especially like nowadays, it's like Jesus Christ. Oh God, what was it?
It's about being.
What was with Schwarzenegger in True Lies when what's her name's like doing her strip tease? Like, man, I would not want to rub one out to that. That was just terrible.
All right, this is
right.
Little TMI, but all right.
Stop holding it back, man. Come on, give us the good stuff.
And for both female listeners of Reviews Without Remorse, we apologize.
Well, it is pretty spotty. Don't complain. It's all I can find.
Is the steering wheel working this thing?
I'm steering.
Well, do the brakes work?
I don't know. I haven't tried them yet.
All right, gentlemen, for scores, I gave Beverly Hills Cop a 9.0 until you berated me for giving a even number, and I jumped it up to a 9.5, and I still think that's not the correct number. So Beverly Hills Cop 2, I think, is better. I'm going to go a 9.6 because, again, I think it takes everything from the original and just kicks it up that little bit that just pushes it over the edge. I'll put it up there with the remake of Terminator 2. As great as the original was, the second was better. I love Alien as a suspense film, but number 2 was that much better. This one is borderline, but I think we take all the things we associate with the Beverly Hills Cop series and we pull most of it from number 2, not number 1 as much as we love it. So that's why I'm giving this one the little kick in the ass, 1.1 higher than the original.
All right, well, I'm not going to score it quite as high as Ray, but I give this movie an 8. I gave the first one a perfect 10 because I do think it's an iconic piece of American pop culture, and I had a really hard time poking holes in that one. This one, it's not perfect, but it's not bad. It's really, really good. This is an action movie. It's not a film. And I think I could make the argument that Beverly Hills Cop is a film in addition to being an action movie. I don't see the Library of Congress preserving Beverly Hills Cop 2, but if they did preserve Beverly Hills Cop, I would not be shocked.
It's funny. I agree wholeheartedly with both of you, honestly. And I totally agree. I say, the first one feels more like a film. This one feels more like a movie, like a good, solid late 80s action movie. But honestly, I really do. I agree with Ray. I feel like they really did take all the wonderful things from the first one and someone very intelligently crafted a wonderful sequel to it. So I gave the first one a 10. So I'm certainly not going that high again with this one. And I was frankly torn between an 8 and a 9, frankly. But right, I think to your point, I'm going to follow suit, and I'm going to give this like an 8.672 to the second power. I really do enjoy the hell out of this one. I think it was just such a well done sequel, and honestly, I think more franchises should look to this one and say, if you're going to try to do a sequel to something that stood alone perfectly well, here's a good inspiration. So I think it's good stuff, and it's just a lot of fun for me. For your consideration, who wants to go first?
I wish I could do a Gilbert Godfrey really well, because I'd love to be like, in one hand I got Joe's score, and then this hand I got nothing. But I can't do that at all. But Kyle, take it away.
Like, oh my
$200.
I'm robbing you. 1, 2, they're real crisp.
For me, it's a simple one. It's a no-brainer. Just action movie sequel done right. There are millions of sequels out there that just cannot hold up to the original, and we spoke about this before with comedy in particular. Comedy sequels are really hard to do because there's only so far you can stretch the same jokes until the premise is no longer funny. This one is just as funny, if not funnier, than the first one. So I'm just going to say, for my consideration, this is how to do a sequel. It's original. It's still faithful to the world established in the first one. It's just a really good sequel.
For me, Kyle, eventually I got to start going first because I always echo you. But Beverly Hills Cop 2, again, it just takes everything about the first one. It kicks it up. I love that it takes what's been established and builds upon it. And you get to learn more about the, I want to say sub characters, but the not main character. You get to learn more about them. It builds upon that, and it makes them more memorable. I mean, like we've talked about the whole time, Billy Rosewood just being off his fucking rocker, and it makes it more lovable, and you're going to remember that more so than you remember him in the first film. So for me, it's that. It, like you said, it's a sequel done right. We're building on characters, and it makes it more memorable for me.
If I'm going to pick out one single element that I really want to sort of give credit to, I'm going to go ahead and pick Tony Scott, as I feel like he was a very big part of why I think this one works so well. And I really do think he was, I kind of feel like if somebody even asked me, would you prefer Tony Scott over Martin Brest doing the sequel? I probably would have said Tony Scott, because honestly, I feel like if you put Martin Brest back in the driver's seat, he would have really been, it would have been tough not to just redo the first one. Not saying he couldn't, but I think that would have been the probably logical thing that he would have done. And I think somebody like Tony Scott really did, to Ray's point, elevate it to the next logical step. So I think he's really good. And again, I am a sucker for the lighting, the sunsets with the filters. I don't care. So yeah, I think he's just really good. He's a really good director. And again, I kind of feel like if he heard me say he was sort of the original Michael Bay, he probably would cringe and punch me in the face. But I do kind of feel like in some ways he was the early inspiration of the Michael Bays of the world. So yeah, I think he's a very, I think he's a very he doesn't get enough the credit I think he deserves. I think he's a really solid director and really delivers solid work. So I'm going to give it to him.
Well, he lived in the shadow of his brother, who made capital F films, and Tony Scott is the more meat and potatoes action flick guy.
Yes, very true. Very true.
Good choice.
Thank you. But gentlemen, who asked you?
You know, I love Lieutenant Bogomil, now promoted to Captain Bogomil. I think the movie tells us way too early that he's going to be okay. And that takes away a lot of the tension of his having been shot early on in the film. I think if we're worried about is Bogomil going to make it okay, that would add a level of tension to the movie that isn't there once we find out fairly early on that he's going to pull through. I'm glad he does, and I think the character deserves to survive, but maybe not tell us that until towards the end of the film as opposed to so early on. It's nitpicking, but there it is. That's what this is all about.
Who asked me? Well, I don't want to repeat myself about like shoddy gun handling. So I'm not going to say anything about this film, and I'm going to save it for the third one.
Yeah, I wrote it down a couple of times that Eddie is not as serious about firearm safety in this movie as he is in the first one.
Well, I'll tell you, mine is sort of in that vein. This is a very nitpicky one, and I frankly was struggling to think of anything. But I think by the time you get to the gun shootout at the end, we're trying to wrap things up. And I remember there's this shot where the big bad guy is sort of like in the shadows. You barely see him, kind of silhouetted. I think it took me at least a view or two before I realized who he was, that was the bad guy. And then this scene when he comes busting through with the car, and then he just drives off a cliff and explodes and dies. It's like, whatever, fine. I guess we have to do him in some way. But it took me a while to realize who the heck that even was. So I thought it was just some rando. But to your point about just firing guns and gun safety, whatever, I love how the three of them are in a shootout with like at least 50 guys, it seems. And somehow the 20 or 30 guys end up surrendering to the three guys. I think it's only the two of them. Axel's inside at that point. So the two of them, somehow, and it happens before the cops show up. Like it's like, I remember noticing, like, I don't think you hear the sirens until they've surrendered at that point. You know what I mean? So
at that point in the movie, would you not surrender to Billy Rosewood? He's a fucking madman at that point.
There you go.
And of course, what kind of car is it that the bad guy drives? It's another black Mercedes.
There you go. Oh, by the way, and I do love the last shot where Billy's like, freeze, and there's a couple baddies down the hill running away, and he's running after them with the shotgun, just blasting behind them. He's like, I'm gonna shoot all these mothers in the back. I don't even care anymore. So yeah, it gets a little nutty, but whatever. I love it anyway.
Their hands are up already, Billy.
I think they know that, Billy.
Kill them, burn them, blow them away.
Don't worry about a thing. On the job. That's what I'm afraid of.
Eddie Murphy, Beverly Hills Cop 2. The Heat's back on.
Gentlemen, I love it. There was a pretty enthusiastic discussion about Beverly Hills Cop 2. Well done, gents. But I have a hunch this ain't nothing compared to what we're going to be doing next week.
I am so looking forward to it. I think it's going to be one of our best yet. It's going to be a good chat.
Yeah, I'm basically frothing to do this next one. And it was to the point where I really had to bite my teeth and be like, I cannot believe I had to watch this again. I cannot believe the things that I do for this series, damn it. Thank you, gentlemen, and I will see you back here next week.
All right.
Looking forward to it.
Take care.
Thanks for listening to the Reviews Without Remorse podcast with Joe, Kyle, and Ray. Join us here every Thursday for a new episode. You can also find our episodes on our YouTube channel. Check the link in the description. All clips in this podcast are for commentary and critique and are considered fair use. No copyright infringement is intended.
Bev, Beverly Hills Cop, Bev, Beverly Hills Cop, Axel Foley gonna find those drugs.